Which matchups are most critical for the Minnesota Wild in their opening round series against the St. Louis Blues? Where can the Wild exploit the Blues during the series? All of that and more will be revealed in our playoff primer today on Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen every day. And just as a reminder, Locked On Wild is available wherever you listen to podcasts, free of charge. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, we dive deep into the opening round playoff series against the St. Louis Blues with what we need to see from each scoring line, confidence level in the goaltending and special teams, as well as some predictions for how things will play out throughout this playoff series. As much playoff preview as you can possibly imagine. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is also brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Fun fact, by the way, the Minnesota Wilds are minus 155 at this point in the series against St. Louis. We'll talk about that a little bit as well. Ladies and gentlemen, the postseason is here. And so we brought in the whole cast. Squad's all here as we gear up for this matchup against the St. Louis Blues. Seth Topal, the host of Locked On Wild, joined by two of our regular guests, Zach Zeman and Alex Micheletti. Gentlemen, we got through the playoffs with minimal injuries, except for what happened in the game against the Avalanche, which we're not going to talk about. It's finally playoff time. And so all those games, all those goals, all those points, all those plus minuses all now get wiped away. It's 0-0. And right off the top, just give me your excitement level heading into this series against St. Louis. 0-10. Alex, where are you at right now?
I'm a 10. I'm excited for the NHL playoffs in general and the whole all the series. I mean, we have some incredible first round matchups, and not only ours right here, the Wild and Blues, but I mean we got Toronto, Tampa Bay, Carolina, Boston. Like, I mean, these are good. Some powerhouses are going down in the first round, so I'm pumped. I think the Wild have a really good chance to advance. It's going to be an absolute war. I think it's going to go the full 7, and nice to have that home ice for sure.
Zach, Where are you at?
I'm at an 11, actually. Well, I'm currently in Missouri, so I'm constantly faced with all these St. Louis Blues fans yelling at me and yapping at me. No, but I feel like this has been an indirect series already in the last 3 weeks of the regular season, battling for home ice and always keeping tabs on the Blues and seeing if they win, if they lose, if they're, who's going to get home ice. And it's finally resolved. But, yeah, this is what we've all been waiting for. I think this is the most entertaining. This is going to be the most entertaining series in the first round, without a doubt. I mean, these two teams are neck and neck. We've seen it all year. There's some great regular season games, and I'm stoked. I mean, it's just cool to be in Missouri with all the Blues guys. So we'll be having some fun, fun nights watching these games. So I'm stoked. It's gonna be great.
I'm at a 9.7 or a 97, one of the two. It's been building up to this, and this Wild team, by no, it's no consequence that they have had the best season in team history. But the messaging, I think, is on point for this team. You saw the video shared by the Minnesota Wild Twitter account with the very concise messaging. It's all about winning. And I think that is why this team has been so successful and they're poised for a deep playoff run, is because that messaging has been consistent all season. and it's going to be on full display against the St. Louis Blues team. Obviously, major bullet dodged over the weekend in regards to Marcus Foligno, and so that'll be the big bullet that we dive into first. It looked really bad. I was at that game on Friday. Foligno was helped off the ice. Thought at that point that it was probably either a torn ACL or something along those lines to where he was going to be out for the series. And over the weekend, we find out that he gets some good news and is on track to play tonight in Game 1. Your concern level for Marcus Foligno's ability to impact this series at his typical level, Zach, are you concerned that Foligno is going to not be able to do the Marcus Foligno things? Or do you think he really did dodge that bullet to where he's going to be as full bore as he possibly can?
I mean, I guess we'll never know until either the Wild win the cup or they get eliminated, because that's when it all comes out. But, you know, I mean, I cannot believe he's playing tonight. Like, I honestly, it's just like, if that doesn't sum up what the NHL playoffs mean to these guys and they've worked all year for, I mean, I don't know what else would. I'm kind of concerned. I mean, I can't imagine he's 100% coming tonight. I can't imagine it. But if he really is, he's going to make that impact. I mean, he's on the wall for a reason. So, no, he's that game changer. So, yeah, I'm ready. I think he's ready. You know, if he really wanted to take it seriously and be cautious, he'd be out, and I think the Wild would still be fine regardless. You know, we saw him out with COVID earlier, or at the latest part of the season. But yeah, he's that difference maker. If he's playing, he's going to make the changes, and he's gonna make a difference here. Yeah, I'm ready.
Alex, what do you think? Are you concerned that Foligno is not going to be able to be that same level of impact with his injury? Do you think he's going to be able to find a way to kind of fight through it?
Just like he said today, I mean, it's the playoffs. I think he's going to find a way. I mean, he's the type of player that feeds off energy and the crowd. And, you know, I think having Game 1 at the X is going to fuel the fire for him and the entire Grief line. And, I mean, they're going to be very important if the Wild are going to win this series. That line does so much for this team, and they need all three of them to be at 100% and playing at a very high level.
The other guy who is returning, at least as far as we know, Mats Zuccarello, who was practicing with the team over the weekend. And we saw Tyson Jost, we saw Nick Bjugstad fill in on that top line. Do we think Zuccarello is back to as full strength as he can be? I mean, it certainly looked like it at practice. He was dancing all over the place, having a good time. Alex, are you confident that Mats Zuccarello is going to be able to perform at his same level once the playoffs get rolling?
Yeah, I have no doubt in my mind. He's a veteran. He's been in a lot of playoff battles before. We don't even know what he actually hurt. So
right,
his situation's a little bit different than Foligno's. Because he didn't get a knee injury. So it must have been a pulled groin or something where they just were, being very cautious. But he didn't seem worse for the wear, like you said in that video. We've known with the team socials and everything, they wouldn't put somebody on if there was a major concern. So it sounds like he's raring to go.
Zach, what do you think?
I think that Kaprizov and Zuccarello relationship is going to get ignited in this series, and I think he's coming back for a reason. They need a spark here. This team, they're coming in against a powerful Blues team, so I think him coming back, I think he's ready. I mean, with the length he's been out, I'd hope he's ready by this time. I think Foligno's definitely in a worse spot than Zuccarello is in terms of injuries. But yeah, if that spark gets ignited, some dangerous things are going to happen.
I could not agree more. I think Zuccarello is going to be fine. We'll talk about the special teams at the end of the show, but I think having him back on that unit too will help fix that power play, which had a few games where it looked like it was kind of back on track, and then, oh my God, that Avalanche game was a mess. So we'll talk about the special teams. I'm also going to subliminally weave in some inspirational messages from other Minnesota coaches. We're going to start with PJ Fleck, the "Don't be afraid to be a legend" speech that he gave to the team before the Wisconsin game. So for this Wild team, who obviously listen, don't be afraid to be a legend. Do not be afraid to be a legend. So
I'd pay money to be in that locker room after warmups tonight and watch that speech before they head out on the ice. I would pay money. That would be great entertainment.
I bet Dean has a banger cooked up for getting this team ready. I'm sure he does.
Oh, they need it.
So, yeah. So this is going to be, there are so many different angles to try to break down with this series. And so health, first and foremost. Now we'll navigate to some of the head-to-heads, with obviously the Blues having 3 lines that are capable of game-breaking at any particular point, and what the Wild need to do to win those matchups. Plenty more of our playoff primer coming up next here on Locked on Wild. But first, betonline.net is your #1 source for all of your betting stats and sports info. You can find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's NBA playoffs, Major League Baseball, and the Stanley Cup playoffs as well. BetOnline is your continued source for all of the sports wagering information you need, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more, and the Kentucky Derby coming up this weekend. So head to their website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. You can find all of that and more at BetOnline, where the game starts. Continuing today's episode of Locked on Wild, once again, thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen each and every day. This trio right here going to have you on lock for the entirety of the series against the St. Louis Blues. Guys, let's dive in a little bit to this matchup. This St. Louis team is very good. They are very deep. They have a lot of different ways that they can beat you. I don't know, though, if they have gone up against a world beater defense like the Grief line can be. And so let's just start with the Grief line needing to kind of lock down that top line combo that the St. Louis Blues can trot out there pretty much every night. That, of course, is the likes of Pavel Buchnevich, Robert Thomas, and Vladimir Tarasenko. Confidence level, scale of 1 to 10. Is the Grief line going to be able to slow those guys down? Maybe not stop them entirely, but are they going to be able to slow them down enough to really impact this series? Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, as long as Foligno is good to go, I think they can. I put out there on Twitter the other day, I think it's imperative that they have Eck go out there and be the shutdown center, and Jonas Brodin being the shutdown D out there against Robert Thomas, try to neutralize him. He's one of the few remaining just great passers, setup men in the league. He doesn't like to shoot. He likes to pass to Buchnevich and Tarasenko. And so, if you can wear that line out, that's gonna help the Wild so much. And then have Kaprizov and those guys go up against O'Reilly, Perron, and that crew. So yeah, I mean, Robert Thomas has been on an incredible heater, just like Kevin Fiala. He's been one of the best players in the league in last month and change. And so, you got to do everything you can. You don't even have to score. You just got to play defense on that line and make sure that you don't take any cheap penalties too, because I think that's where the Blues can get the Wild, is, as we've seen, is on special teams. And so, I think the Wild have the upper hand 5-on-5. And so this line is the most important line for the Wild. People will say Kaprizov and that line, but the Grief line gets it done. They are your prototypical playoff hockey type of line, where they can just wear the crap out of you, beat you up physically, and and wreak havoc. And it's nice to have the home ice, because the Wild will have last change and they can dictate what lines they want to throw out there. And Eck is going to have to win some faceoffs, no doubt. They'll put Robert Thomas out there, but O'Reilly will take a lot of important faceoffs. You'll probably see him just take the faceoff and get off the ice. He's one of the best faceoff guys in the league, and he's won major awards, and so yeah, it's gonna be fun.
It is. Zach, what do you think? Can the Grief line slow that top St. Louis Blues line down enough to give the Wild a chance to score on them?
Yeah, I believe so. This line is the definition of the Minnesota Wild. These guys are all together. They're big. I think the Wild are the bigger team in this series. And if this line can, be fully established and shut down, the Blues, and while also, revolving on the defense or relying on the defense if they need them, it goes both ways. The forward line can only do so much, and you rely on your defense when you can. So, if you can get this Grief line established, for sure, I think, the Blues are a tough team to shut down. And then you got to rely on that Kaprizov Zuccarello line as well. You can't just have the Grief line do it all. So other lines need to step up. Bottom six needs to show up. I've loved Gaudreau recently. It's just a great guy to watch now. And, it's kind of sucks he wasn't really in the spotlight, but now he's making waves, and, it's just insane to see, the depth this team has, and you can rely on the bottom six to even get the job done. So if you can establish that first line in the Grief line and they get the work done there, then you can start throwing other lines out and experiment a little bit and spread out the trust along your lines. I think that's a big part in, throwing out different lines against the Blues here. It'll definitely mix it up while also, benefiting your own team in the series.
I agree. I think I think just because the Blues have not seen that line fully incorporated, that it is going to cause some problems. I don't get the sense, and I said this in the crossovers with the Locked On Blues guys, I don't get the sense that either team is going to completely shut down the opponent. I think the Wild are going to have plenty of chances to score in this series because Ville Husso is very, very unproven in the postseason. And the Blues are winning all these games, but you look at his goals against average over their last 30 games was 3.05. So there are opportunities. There will be opportunities to score on him. And I think the Blues will have the opportunities to score on the other end. So I think the Grief line will be able to slow those guys down, but ultimately it's going to come down to which goalies stand on their head a little more than the others. So let's talk about the goalie matchup a little bit here. We don't know what's going to happen, whether it be Cam Talbot or Marc-Andre Fleury. If you had to pick, who do you trust more for the game one start, Talbot or Fleury? Zach, who are you going with?
I've been Talbot's guy all year. I've been so high on him. I think Talbot gets the nod for game one. He's been with the team longer this year. He's played more games against St. Louis this year, even though the results may not have been what they wanted. No, I definitely start Talbot here. As Fleury looks great too. Don't get me wrong. To have Fleury as a backup, or to have Talbot as your backup. It's just a great goalie tandem. So I like Talbot here.
Micheletti.
Yeah, since the trade went down, and I tweeted it out too. I said it's going to be the best thing that's ever happened to Cam Talbot. It put a little chip on Cam's shoulder, and he's played phenomenal hockey. Ever since Fleury came on board, and they've been a good tandem. It doesn't seem like there's been any egos hurt by having to share the net with each other. It's got to be Cam, no doubt. And I think Billy made the trade too to have Fleury be that safety valve if Cam decides, or starts to falter a little bit.
Yep.
And we've seen it in playoffs many times where teams use both goalies. So at some point, Fleury's gonna be in the net, I'm sure. But you got to go with Cam. He's played, they both have been all right, stats wise, if you compare the two, but I think just Cam's played a little bit better, and you got to ride his momentum, and you could kind of see, that they were starting to rest Cam a little bit by playing Fleury a little bit more, and so that I think that's why Cam's the pick.
Yeah, I go Talbot, and here's why for me, because I think Talbot gives you a more even keel. That was one of the things that I think was a little concerning for me with Marc-Andre Fleury over his last handful of starts with the team. I mean, look at that Kraken game. He gave up 2 goals almost instantly. Now, not his fault per se, but he had that game. He had the Kings game where LA scored 3 times within the first couple of minutes of the game. I worry about kind of that early period of the game where what happens if the Blues get 1 or 2 right off the bat. And I don't think that is as prone to happen to Talbot as it seems like it was for Fleury. Talbot's been the guy all season, great at home, which I don't know if we're going to use home road splits to determine who starts where, but Talbot's been great at home all season. And I think he is the perfect one to start to try to rattle this Blues team. But good goalie play, good offense. It doesn't matter nearly as much as the just huge Achilles heel that we'll finish the show by talking about special teams. Power play and penalty kill are going to be a factor in this series. And so we'll look at whether or not we think both units have improved or can by the time this series gets underway. We will continue our playoff primer here on Locked On Wild after this. But first, the month of May is here, which means the weather's getting nice. You're going to be out and on the go more than you normally are. And so you need that perfect go-to snack to take with you. Built Bar is that perfect go-to snack. And it's not like you're having to make a decision to sacrifice tastes. Built Bars are delicious themselves. They're covered in 100% real chocolate. So you know when you eat a Built Bar, you can eat healthy and actually enjoy doing it. As with all Built Bars, they contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Your standard candy bar is anywhere around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. So if you want to kick that bad candy habit, head to Built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your order. Again, use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wilds. Thank you once again for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Once you're finished here, make sure you check out both parts of the Locked On Wild, Locked On Blues crossover for a little more info on the St. Louis Blues from the voices of Locked On Blues. You can find that anywhere you listen to this podcast and on YouTube as well. All right, we've put it off long enough. Power play and the penalty kill. Penalty kill has been a problem for a large part of the season, but I am hopeful that what we saw over the last 10 games of the season is that as long as the Wilds are aggressive on the penalty kill and they don't get sucked into just waiting around the net for the opponent to shoot or pass, if the penalty kill maintains its aggressiveness, I think it will be fine. Do you agree or disagree, Zach? What do you think?
Well, I'm just wondering on how much they've been practicing with these with the penalty kill, in anticipation for the series. You got to wonder what they're doing now. No, but it's definitely looked a little better. I think the Wild, it's obvious that they've struggled all year with this, and I think they given up at least like 65 on 4 goals. I just did a couple digging, I was digging for some stats here. I think the Blues led the NHL in 5 on 4 with 63 goals. So it's just like, if you take these dumb penalties, you're just digging a hole for yourself here, and you can't rely on it too much. And the Wild have struggled. I wasn't really listening to the question. I was kind of just in my zone, but I'm definitely concerned. The Blues are good in the power play. They've showed it. I mean, when you see how the last 2 games went into overtime and the ice gets bigger on the 3v3, you can see what the Blues have done to the Wild. They finished both games in overtime there. So if you if you make the ice bigger for the Blues and you have them, one less guy, they're gonna make easy cake out of it. So I just think if you take dumb penalties, that's the key to losing this series. This is the storybook of the series, and you just can't let that happen. You can't go down. You can't take dumb penalties. It's just what everyone says, but this is legit it. That's just it. So
that is going to be the deciding factor. Alex, are you confident that the penalty kill is making enough strides, and if they simply stay aggressive, try to make it a little bit of an issue entering the zone as opposed to just camping out in front of the net, if they just do that, can this penalty kill get it done against this Blues power play?
Yeah, I think so. And you hear it all the time too. Your best penalty killer is your goaltender too. And so, Cam's going to have to make the extra saves. I thought the penalty kill started to improve a little bit near the end there. As long as we don't have Alex Goligoski killing penalties, when I saw that late a couple of times, I was like, "Oh boy, what are we doing here?" But I think with having 100% squad, I think we'll be fine now.
I would like to see that, and I'm sure they'll work this in. But the Wild did, when they had their full complement of players: Jared Spurgeon, Joel Eriksson Ek, Nick Delorier, and I think the other one was either Foligno or Greenway. It was Spurgeon, Middleton, Delorier, and Eriksson Ek. That's a problem. That's a nasty penalty kill. And so you have that. You have Kevin Fiala, who can more than handle his own on the PK. It just comes down to making it difficult for teams entering the zone and forcing them into making reads or passes before they're ready, as opposed to just taking all 4 players and just wedging them in front of the goalie and letting the Blues do whatever they want on the power play. That's the difference there. And as far as the power play goes, and I don't know what the number was against the Avs, because there were so many penalties in that game. But it was awful. They just were passing. It's like they're on the freeway, just passing everybody all the time. And so just quickly on the power play, and we can just do yes or no for this, because then I want to get to some of our X factors and predictions for the series. But yes or no, with Mats Zuccarello back, will the power play improve? Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, 100%. We saw in the Seattle game too, it was cooking. They were moving it. It looked the best, of course it is the Kraken, but the movement was so much better. They were making passes faster. I really liked how they just had the whole setup. And so, yeah, I think they're ready to go. I saw Russo said that Dumba was not on the power play units. So that tells me that he's, whether it's his shoulder or pec or whatever, that it's not 100% and that he can't shoot. He can't fire slap shots, 100% effectively. So, they looks like they have Rodin being a part of the second unit, and Spurge top unit. So, that's interesting. But I've really liked what Spurgeon has done with that top unit and being the quarterback back there.
Yeah, not Alex Goligoski. And
no, we can't.
That unit, both units looked really good against Calgary. I think the power play was 2 for 2 and the kill was 4 for 4. So, Zach, same question for you. Zuccarello back in the power play. Are we going to see some power play goals in this series? Do you think the power play will be better?
Yeah, I do. And I think once you add one of your star players back into the lineup, especially come playoffs, there's got to be a spark of energy in this. I mean, you have to have more confidence if you're around, Zuccarello, who's notoriously good and a playoff veteran. I mean, if you have these players that are leading your 5-on-4 guys out on the ice, there's got to be some sort of confidence to take shots and to make those passes and to make those plays because you have reliable teammates. I mean, I think that just adds a lot. I think the Wild are going to start buzzing here soon. Something's going to change. Something needs to change. And I think adding Zuccarello back is going to make that difference. So
let's talk predictions and hot takes for the series, because I have one, and I told both of the Blues hosts this, and they just the biggest shake of the head imaginable. And I believe it just because of how the games went against these two teams in the regular season. This series is going to 7. 5 of the games will go to overtime. And I firmly believe that. And so you want to talk about cardiac kids?
Yeah.
And that's why I think the Wild end up winning this series, because they are infinitely more seasoned in overtime this year than the St. Louis Blues are. The Wild have gone to 22 overtime games. The Blues have not gone to even remotely close to that level.
Jeez.
So I think the Wild will win the series. There may be a couple of lopsided Blues games in it because empty netters and such. I think there will be a couple of games that go the Blues' way that look worse in the score than they actually are. So 5 overtimes of the 7 games is my hot take. Zach, what's your spicy take for this series, if you've got one?
I don't know if this is a spicy take, but I don't think Fleury's going to start until Talbot loses. I think they're not going to go with that switch in motion of, Talbot gets game 1, Fleury gets game 2, Talbot 3. I think Talbot's going to be in there as long as he wins, and then they're going to put Fleury in. Along with the overtime prediction there, it's just different in the regular season when they're 3v3, and I just think the Wild are a better 5-on-5 team.
Yep.
And now that the playoff overtime are 5-on-5, something's going to be different, and I think the Wild have an advantage there. It's just about who has the best cardio, I guess. It'll be good. I'm excited to see what Alex says here.
Yeah, what's your hot take, Alex?
Yeah, I think this goes in 7, just like you.
I didn't even predict it.
Yeah.
It's because you're saying 4, right?
Yeah, I mean,
no.
we saw in the regular season here, these teams went to overtime multiple times. It didn't go the Wild's way, but as we've seen, with the we won't have to worry about 3-on-3 in playoff hockey. Thank God.
Thank
God. Or shootouts.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Don't get me started on that. Just gimmick. Too many gimmicks. And go back to the 3-point system too. I think this goes 7. I think the reason why the Wild win is because they have the home ice. And if it comes to a 7th game, it'll be at the X. And could you imagine how fired up the X would be for this team to get to the second round too? They've been aching for a deep run from this team. It's been a while. And this is the best team they've had in a long time too, top to bottom, depth wise. Thank you, Anson Carter. So I think this is the year.
I'm going to bounce off of that. Can I just real quick? I was at game 6 against Vegas last year when Foligno put the Vegas Golden Knight player through the glass. I don't know if you guys remember that, but that arena, I mean, it was the COVID attendance, but that arena was literally so loud, and it was incredible. The atmosphere was unbelievable, and I can't even imagine. I mean, home ice matters. It does matter. Like this, it's the
Mhm.
playoffs. To have your fan base there for your last game of the season or of your, of what could be the season is a big deal. No, the Wild thrive in the X. The record shows, and this is just going to be an insane series. I think it goes to 7. I'm going to say that the Wild win in 7. Can you imagine if that game goes to overtime in Game 7? I mean, that's just the storybook here. We've seen that. Like the 2 out of 3 times we've played this year in the Winter Classic have gone to overtime in St. Louis, and they've won them both. So how about you get an overtime in St. Paul and win that one, and then move on? No, I mean it would just be insane. This is going to be an unbelievable series. But yeah, I'd say that's how the Wild get it done. I like that. I like that home ice. It matters. It does.
I, for one, am sick and tired of hearing about what a great team the Blues have. Screw them. This is the Minnesota Wild's time. Now go out there and take it.
Best team in history.
And that's the mic drop. That's where we're leaving it with our playoff primer. So thank you for tuning in. It's going to be just an insane series, and we've got you covered every single step of the way. So make sure to follow along with Locked On Wild wherever you listen to your podcasts. Also make sure that you are following along with Locked On Blues. They'll keep you covered on the other side after the Blues lose all the games. So that is it's going to be an unbelievable series. So make sure you're tuning in with us to catch it each and every step of the way. Locked On Wilds, bringing you new episodes every Monday through Friday as parts of the Locked On Podcast Network.